Our speaker has arrived. I'm welcoming, let's see. Hi, Zara.
Hi, Zara.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Good and yourself?
Good, good. The air quality is like getting better, but then it's also like bringing my allergies back up. So if I sneeze like 5 times in a row, just don't worry. I'll be back.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you, Zara. So,
Oh,
before we get started, I'm just going to introduce the speaker who's going to be having the pleasure of speaking with us today about the topic. So today, we have Zara Hodge, and what we will be talking about is Prop 15. And Zara is from Vote Yes, and vote yes on Prop 15. Apologize. And Prop 15 is also known as the Schools and Community First, which is aimed to reinvest billions of dollars annually into funding for K through 12 schools, community colleges, and local communities. Today, she will be also walking us through on how to plan our own virtual phone banking or advocacy parties so we can educate our friends, family members, and community members about Prop 15 and encourage them to vote yes on Prop 15. So let's see what's in store.
all right, thank you. Thank you so much. I was wondering, could the slide deck be put up?
Absolutely. Just give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Let's see.
And while we wait for the slides, everyone just, if you can put your cameras on. If not, no worries. We'll just so that we can all see your lovely faces.
Can
Definitely.
everybody see the slides?
Yes, they're there.
Awesome.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. As Nisha, right?
Yes.
All right, as Nisha mentioned, I am one of the Speakers Bureau coordinators for the Prop 15 campaign, otherwise known as Schools and Communities First. We have around 1,000 speakers across California who are part of our coalition, who are helping get folks informed and mobilized and energized to vote yes on Prop 15 this year. And I'm really, really excited to be presenting to you all today. So first, just a little bit on what Prop 15 is. Next slide. So the way that California law is currently structured, many large commercial industrial properties, think like Chevron properties, think like Disneyland, a lot of them are currently paying their property taxes according to the value of their property, not now in 2020, but back in the 1980s, with the way that current law is structured. So in this way, this creates sort of a vacuum in the amount of tax revenue that California is able to receive in order to really put that funding into our schools, into our communities for essential services that are needed to really have quality services to help uplift our communities, right? This is true for residential and commercial properties, but what Prop 15 does is it really focuses in on these really large commercial industrial properties to ensure that they're paying their fair sticker price on their assessed value on their property tax. So what Prop 15 does is it creates a split roll tax for some commercial properties. So on one roll, you have commercial industrial properties valued at $3 million or higher. And those properties, if Prop 15 passes, will get reassessed so that they'll not be paying their property taxes based on their value back in the 1980s, but at their current reassessment value, at their current fair sticker price value of that property. The other role, which is our homes, smaller properties valued at $3 million or less, agricultural land, all of that stays the same. That's completely exempted and will not be impacted by Prop 15 at all. So in short, what Prop 15 does is it says, let's just take a look every few years to see what large commercial properties are actually worth or their fair sticker price, and simply have them pay the same taxes as equally valuable commercial property. Next slide, please. And as you can see in this graphic here, 92% of the revenue that Prop 15 reclaims will come from the top 10% of the commercial properties that will be reassessed. So we're really, really looking at these really large, really expensive commercial properties that haven't necessarily been paying their fair share until potentially after Prop 15 passes. And with this change, if Prop 15 passes, it helps reclaim up to $12 billion each year for schools and communities across California. For what that looks like in LA specifically, it's up to $1.5 billion per year that's going directly to our schools, that's going directly into local government services every single year. So if Prop 15 passes, that's definitely a very, very big deal for the pot that our local governments are able to work with in order to ensure quality services for our communities. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned before a couple times, so Prop 15 is really helping invest in our schools and communities, right? And I'd like to hear from you all, like what are some critical issues that you feel our schools, our communities across California are facing right now, especially due to COVID-19?
Well, there's always lack of funding for, you know, music, for example. For example, my daughter goes to a local school, and now we're having to rely on a booster meeting for parents to raise funds to pay for things that the school doesn't afford.
Right. Definitely. No, thanks so much for sharing. I see some in the chat, teachers and students who are struggling to keep up with learning and teaching through Zoom. I see mental health. I see quality virtual school, helping bridge the digital divide with devices, as well as just quality online learning, right? Students not having access to 3 meals a day or proper nutrition, students with heavy family responsibilities not being able to keep up. Yes, these are all really PPE if in-person classes were to resume, proper supports for students with disabilities. Yes, like all of these are super, super important and super, super critical. And as you see right now during COVID-19, right, like this has really highlighted a lot of the systemic issues that many of our students, many of our communities have been facing. And a lot of that burden is particularly on our Black and Brown communities, right? And with Prop 15, that really gives a larger pot for our elected leaders, for our local elected leaders to be able to work with, so that we can truly invest in these critical issues and hopefully create changes that are not only critical during COVID-19, but are really, really long lasting for folks across the board. Yeah, so thank you all for sharing. Next slide, please. Perfect. So definitely want to highlight, as I did before, that Prop 15 is, so homeowners, renters are not impacted at all by Prop 15. So again, with the nature of the split roll, it creates this split roll tax where one split is these large commercial industrial properties valued at $3 million or higher that are going to get reassessed according to their current value. And then this other roll that has our homes, that has certain mixed use properties, that has our agricultural land, that will be paying the exact same rate that they've been paying throughout this time. Also want to reiterate that the actual property tax rate is not changing for anyone. So California has one of the lowest property tax rates in the country, and that's actually not changing. It's just changing the reassessment value for certain properties to ensure that they're paying their fair share. So again, if anyone asks you like, hey, like I own a home, like is Prop 15 going to increase my taxes? The answer is no, not at all. Same with renters, same with farmers, all agricultural land. So if you get any of those questions, you know that the answer is always no. But for specifically mixed use properties, so these are properties where like sometimes you see like there might be like storefronts at the bottom and then like there'll be apartments at the top. So that's considered a mixed use property. And for those, if 75% of the property is mainly residential property, so just like homes, then that mixed use property is also completely exempted, not impacted by Prop 15 at all. If it's less than that, so say if it's like a 50-50 split, then just that 50% that's the commercial property will be reassessed, and then the other 50% won't be impacted at all. But again, that's only if that property is valued at $3 million or higher. Okay, perfect. Next slide, please. All right, so wanted to focus in on what supports are available for small businesses as well. So I'd like to hear from you all when it comes to Prop 15 and any conversations that you've had. Have you heard anything in regards to like small businesses and how they've been impacted? If not, it's okay, but would love to hear from folks if they've heard anything. You could drop it in the chat, you can say it.
Sorry, I haven't, but someone's waiting in the room to be let in. Marissa, I don't know if you can let them in.
Oh, thank you for letting me
Thank
know.
you. Thanks.
Yeah, it's okay if y'all haven't heard anything, but a lot of our opposition, especially, has been focusing on the small business aspect and how many small community family-owned businesses are going to be negatively impacted by Prop 15, and that's actually not true. There are a lot of ways that Prop 15 is really helping level the playing field for small businesses across the board. And one big example that's highlighted on this slide right here is that right now businesses have to pay property taxes on things like equipment, supplies, machinery, desks and chairs, computers and servers. But if Prop 15 passes, the first $500,000 in fixtures and equipment would actually be exempt for all businesses. So this includes the businesses, this includes the small businesses, this also includes the businesses that are going to be reassessed. So say like Disneyland, even Disneyland is going to receive a $500,000 exemption on their fixtures and equipment if Prop 15 passes. And some of these tax exemptions would exist for all fixtures and equipment for small businesses too. Oh, could you go back to the previous slide, please?
Sorry, one sec.
Oh,
Was it
no worries.
this one here?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So first, small businesses are receiving this tax exemption on fixtures and equipment. At the same time, like this is just generally helping level the playing field for small businesses, where a lot of small businesses on their properties, they're already paying property taxes at the value of their property right now in 2020, when there are a lot of these larger properties that haven't been paying their fair share. So in that way, it's really helping level the playing field for small businesses across California as well. And for the argument that like eventually, because there's like this increase in property tax, like this would make small businesses pay higher rents too, because then they would like offload the property taxes on them. That's not necessarily true as well. If our property taxes were directly correlated with rents in California, we would be seeing the lowest rents in the country because we have the lowest property taxes in the country, right? But as you see, like we have very high rents in California, and a lot of that is because of our crisis, our housing crisis, and just like the amount of available land to be able to build on in California. And that's where a lot of the heightened rents come from. So Prop 15 isn't necessarily going to be directly impacting raised rents for small businesses. So if you have any conversations with folks about small businesses and are receiving, and if you and your families and your communities are receiving misinformation about that, there are definitely resources to be able to really help set the record straight around small businesses too. If you could go to the next slide, please. So once this like up to $12 billion per year is reclaimed across California, there's sort of this big question about like, how's the money going to be spent, right? So according to the proposition, how it's going to be broken down is 60% of the revenue is going to be going to local government services, and 40% is going to be going to public education, with around 89% going to K-12 schools and 11% going to community colleges across California. And I know a lot of you mentioned like a lot of the ways that the funding could be used to really support students' education across California. And then there's sort of this like other question of like, okay, well, if there's going to be this breakdown of the 60-40%, then like how is the money going to be spent on these different initiatives, right? And that's sort of where I want to emphasize elections and voting down ballot being really important, because especially with Prop 15, the way that the funding is going to be spent is ultimately down to our local leaders and how they decide to spend this funding, whether it's for PPE, whether it's for devices for students to be able to learn, whether it's for anything else. So that's why I really want to emphasize the importance of being able to vote down ballot and voting not only for during our presidential election, but also for our local leaders and the way that they might be spending that funding. Just kind of want to take a break here because I know that that's like a lot of information that I just threw at you, and was wondering if you all had any questions up till now.
Hi, thanks for being on.
You can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. I apologize, Brian. Go ahead.
I just had a question. I heard there's an episode of some information I was listening to on a podcast about property taxes in LA for golf courses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of how golf courses are taxed as public parks. And so basically they pay nothing despite the fact that they're not public parks that people can just walk around and kind of like go hang out in. I didn't know if this proposition affected that at all as well, or was it just for reevaluating for kind of like you mentioned some of the bigger companies over 3 million, I think you said was the number?
Mm-hmm. So 3 million, and then they have to be designated as a commercial property. So I'll double check on public parks, but or I'll double check on golf courses, but if they're designated as public parks, might not be impacted by Prop 15. But that's definitely like a way to highlight how a lot of like tax law, even like this law, where initially like Prop 13 back in the 1980s really changed tax law for a lot of these larger corporations to not be paying their fair share of property taxes, like how that's like highlighted across like a lot of aspects of tax law. Yeah, I see another question in the chat. Will people pay more for goods and services we buy from these large commercial and industrial properties? So that's definitely an argument that's made too about a lot of it being like eventually offloaded onto our goods and services. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, with these properties being reevaluated, it's not a really big number for them for the amount that they would be paying now each year for property taxes. So that argument around like how it's going to be eventually offloaded and then we would have to pay a lot more on our goods and services, when the new sticker price that these large commercial industrial properties will be paying is like not that large in the grand scheme of like the amount of profit that they're making anyway, most likely that those are things that will not be increased for consumers who are buying those goods and services. Any other questions? Does it affect individual homeowners? So not at all. So Prop 15 exempts all homeowners, all renters, all residential properties, all farmers, agricultural land. None of that is impacted at all. So if Prop 15 passes, homeowners will be paying the exact same property tax that they were paying before Prop 15. Any other questions there? All right. Okay, doesn't look like it. So moving into how the funding will be spent. So with education, the way that it's going to be distributed is there's this kind of like complicated math formula called the LCFF. And essentially what happens is all of the counties collect the funding and figure out how to distribute the funding according to highest need for schools. So the higher need schools that are the most under-resourced will be receiving the most funding from this proposition, and they'll sort of like work down the list that way. So in that way, the funding will be more equitably distributed among schools. And then for community colleges, Prop 15 funding will be going to 11% of the funding will be going to community colleges as well. And in that way, it's really cool where we would be able to really help expand these job and vocational programs that a lot of community colleges across California have. Even thinking about like our essential workers right now during COVID-19, our healthcare workers, even in education, our librarians, a lot of these are vocational programs that come out of our community colleges. And with Prop 15 passing, that's a way for us to be able to help increase the pool of funding that community colleges have to be able to support their local communities. Would love to hear a little bit from you all too, like just to sort of like share a story myself, just like thinking about even like my education from K to 12 and like what my siblings are experiencing right now. Like there are a lot of times where like I would go into class. California has like one of the biggest class sizes in the nation. Sometimes like I wouldn't even get like a chair to sit to be able to like go to school, and I would just kind of like sit like on the steps where like within the classroom, and just like thinking about like how under resourced some of our schools are right now, and like how much they could really benefit from this proposition if it passes, is really astounding to me. And like that's kind of what inspires and motivates me to really continue with this campaign, because I know the impact that it's going to have like on my siblings and my cousins who are in K to 12 education right now. And I'm even thinking about some of my family members who are frontline workers and don't even have PPE right now in their work, and knowing that if Prop 15 passes, like that increases the amount of funding for my family members to be able to have PPE while they're doing their work and to be able to stay safe. Like all of these essential foundational resources that people need are just like, it sucks that like that folks don't have it right now, but with like the potential that Prop 15 can give, for folks to be able to just have those foundational resources for communities to be able to thrive is so important. PPE is like personal protective equipment, so like just like having masks and like gloves and things like that. Like some of my family members are healthcare workers or grocery store workers who like don't have PPE right now, and a lot of their employers are not providing it. Some of them like work within government as well who are not providing it. So like Prop 15 can definitely go a really long way in helping ensuring communities can really thrive through this initiative. Yes. And next slide, please. One other thing about Prop 15 is that it ensures really strict accountability. And it's written right there in the proposition about how the funding will be used, how it's going to be distributed. And even though like broadly it's up to local elected officials to determine how the money will be spent to best meet the needs of their constituents, the rule of thumb is that the way that the funding is allocated right now will stay pretty similar. And then like if there are specific initiatives that they need to really meet critical needs for constituents at this time, that's sort of how they'll disseminate the funding. So it's not like all these counties will receive like huge pools of funding and then they'll be like, okay, we can spend this however we want, right? So there are definitely like rules and regulations around how they'll be able to spend the funding and to ensure that it's really meeting the critical needs of our schools and of our communities across California. And for a little bit about how this process will look like. So I see one question, is Prop 15 local or statewide? So Prop 15 is a state, it's going to be on the California ballot. So folks across the state are going to be voting on whether to pass Prop 15 or not. But if Prop 15 passes, the funding will be going, will be reclaimed county by county, depending on where the properties are. So different counties are going to be receiving different pools of funding, except when it comes to education and how education funding will be reallocated according to schools of highest need. And if Prop 15 passes, what will happen is there'll be a task force that will be created, and this task force will receive startup funding, not from Prop 15, like the governments already have funding in place for this, but the task force will have 2 years to sort of hash out the details for implementation. And from 2022 to 2023, that's when these really large commercial industrial properties, like the most expensive ones, will be reassessed, and then they'll work their way down. And then that's how the money will start to be reclaimed and then be reinvested into schools and communities across the state. And the task force will be completely public. They'll be working with the state legislature and with local counties. So the whole process will be really public, and it's up to the public to be able to keep holding the task force accountable. And it's great because it's going to be a very open and transparent process for the public to be able to see what's going on. I see one question. How is Prop 15 looking? I can talk about that in the next slide. All right, so more about the opposition. So these are our largest organizations in opposition to Prop 15. A lot of them do represent these large commercial industrial properties, which makes sense. There is a lot of misinformation going around about what Prop 15 does, which is why these sorts of presentations are really important. And it's also important for you to be going out and informing your family, your friends, your communities about what Prop 15 does and why it's important. How Prop 15 is looking right now, recent polling has showed that Prop 15 is at like 51%. It takes 50% for Prop 15 to be able to pass. So we're at a very, very, very slim margin, which is why, again, really, really important to be emphasizing to our communities the importance of Prop 15 and why it's really important that it passes for us to be able to really take that across the finish line in this last month before the election. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is only a small picture of what our coalition looks like. We have a coalition across California with really, really great organizations that on behalf of seniors, educators, faith and community groups, small business owners, students, healthcare workers, other essential workers, housing advocates, like the list goes on and on and on and on, with communities that are really, really working to ensure that this initiative passes, because they realize like the gravity of what Prop 15 could do and how it could really help and invest in communities across California. So ballots have already dropped. I believe they're already being mailed to folks across California. So I know people are saying like, yes, we got a month until the election, but the election is right now. People are voting right now. And that's why it's so, so important for us to be able to get involved as soon as we can and really, really push over the course of this next month to make sure that we're informing and mobilizing our communities to get out the vote. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is a couple details about how to get more information about our campaign. Our website is yes15.org. We have an action center on that website where you can sign up for phone banking opportunities. You could write a letter to the editor. There are downloadable DIY like do it yourself, like lawn signs and window signs, and lots of ways for you to be able to help spread the word. You could also follow us on social media. There are some really, really fun graphics on there, which I always love to see. And then lastly is our phone banking link. It's a mobilized link. If you go to mobilize.us/schools and communities first, we have some regular phone banking opportunities. And if y'all got a pretty big group of advocates who really want to help phone bank, we can set up a custom phone bank for you all too with our field director. So up to you all on how you want to get involved. And I'm really, really excited to see you all. And thanks, first of all, like thanks so much for having me, and like really, really excited to see you all like join the cause and really work during this last month to help Prop 15 get across the finish line. So thanks so much for listening. I know it was a lot of stats and a lot of really like nitty-gritty information, but really, really important to get that information down to really help inform communities as we're helping get out the vote in this last push. So thank you all so, so much for listening, and we'll definitely take any other questions that you all have. So I see one question in the chat about local services and what those local services actually are. So that funding is divided into counties, cities, and special districts. And special districts are like libraries, water, fire, parks and rec, that sort of thing. And this could include things like, well, as I said before, like funding into our libraries, into parks and recreation, into firefighters and first responders, senior services, county public and mental health, housing and homelessness, public transportation. So like there's a lot of different ways that this funding can be used, and can be used to really fund like the critical essential services that have been really disinvested in up till this point. And yes, I can definitely share the slides. I can pass them over to Marissa, who might be able to pass it along to you all. So we'll definitely share the slides, and can definitely also share resources on how to get involved, like the website, the social media, and the phone banking opportunities. Oh, perfect. And then Marissa put the ways to get involved in the chat as well. So definitely sign up, check out our socials, and definitely get involved if you haven't already with Prop 15 volunteer opportunities. Any other questions? Oh. Besides doing phone banking, talking to friends and family, what else can be done? What are recommendations for our attendees who cannot vote as of yet? Wait, for the second part of the question, is that like for folks like who are unable to vote, or for those who like haven't received their ballots yet?
As in like underage, like they're not 18 as of yet. So
Yeah, definitely.
Some of our attendees are like still in high school or just trying to be, be active, trying to make change in the community, and that's very, touching. So I just want to know, what can they do as young attendees? Whether it's like talking to friends and family, but what else can they do?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest way for, first of all, just like thank you all for like being so energized and like mobilized to really help inform communities. That's really, really exciting to see a lot of young organizers out here. For our young organizers, definitely, especially during COVID-19, when a lot of the work is very virtual, working through social is really, really important. So whether it's helping like reshare on like social media to help inform communities is always really helpful. Hosting your own events and helping like lead the charge, whether it's phone banking or speaker opportunities or other opportunities, which we'll go into in a little bit, is also really helpful. But in this last push, I think we're really, really pushing for folks to be able to phone bank, because with the virtual campaign across the state, that's how we've been able to reach the most voters and really have that one-on-one organizing. So definitely sign up for a phone bank if you haven't already. Sign up for consistent phone banks, because that's definitely the best way for us to be able to get the word out and really have these one-on-one conversations to help dispel information and help get out the vote. The other opportunity that I would like to highlight is we have a platform called Outreach Circle, which helps with relational organizing with like your own individual communities. So if that's something that you're interested in, let me know and I can help get you set up on that. But I think a lot of it right now is really helping help inform communities through phone banking, not only about Prop 15, but also about like how to make sure your vote counts, because there's also just been a lot of misinformation about voter education and how ballots are going to be counted. And I think it's really, really important, especially at this point as ballots are dropping and ballots are going into the mail, for us to let communities know that like you need to, like if you haven't already, make sure you're registered to vote by the 19th. To get your ballot in the mail, make sure you know where to drop off your ballot, make a vote plan. And we're kind of going into this last phase in the last month about helping folks make their vote plan and making sure they know how to make sure their vote counts. Any other questions? Any comments? Anything that they've heard from like families and friends that they want about Prop 15 that they want to check in on?
I have a question / comment. I am not a California resident. I'm actually from Massachusetts and living here now. So obviously I can't participate in the election in California and I can't vote yes on Prop 15. But do you, Zara, or maybe anyone else here, like in thinking about sort of non-electoral ways to maybe advocate for redistributing resources to schools, or getting more funding and resources into public schools? Like, does anyone have about ways that we could all, advocate for schools and for communities outside of, voting and outside of just this one proposition? I know that's kind of a complicated question. So we don't have to answer it, but just something that I've been sort of thinking about, and something that we could all think about as we, think about voting season coming up, but also thinking about outside of just sort of checking yes on a ballot, what can we all be doing
Yeah,
to
definitely.
changes?
One idea that we could use to work on is, like, especially thinking like post-election, right? Like if Prop 15 passes, that's a lot of funding that's going to be going to local electeds, and a lot of those local electeds are going to be the ones deciding how that funding is going to be used. And I think that's when the electoral process kind of like shifts from like, getting things voted on and getting things passed to like the accountability piece. And that's when we're really advocating to local electeds about, hey, like the critical issues that a lot of you mentioned when you spoke about it or put it in the chat, like these are really, really critical issues that we need to be able to solve right now. We have the funding to be able to solve it, and we're relying on you to really help get these policies passed, get these initiatives going, to ensure that our communities are really thriving from the funding that we were able to reclaim through this initiative. So I think like that accountability piece is really important, and finding some really creative ways to be able to do so, thinking that a lot of the advocacy work will probably still be virtual post-November. Thinking about the best ways to hold electeds accountable, our local electeds accountable in the way that they're spending their funding.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any final questions that they either want to paste in the chat or just ask out loud as we move on to the next section?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there anywhere online once the funds are collected? Because I do want to see how the money is dispersed. I know that California already has like a $54 billion like deficit. So what's one way that we can ensure that the money is being well spent and it's not just like disappearing, once it gets to those electoral people that, the ones that decide the budget?
Yeah, definitely. So during the first phase with the task force that's going to be helping with like reclaiming the funding and figuring out like the finalized totals for the funding that's going to be reclaimed, that whole process is going to be totally public. There's going to be public meetings with public comment and things like that. So during that first phase, like that's a really good way to get involved, to just keep tabs on like the task force meetings, keeping updated on agendas and reports that they're putting out. So like, where the money's going and how it's being reclaimed. And then during that second phase, when it's about the money being spent, a lot of that is going to be up to, again, like the local elected. So that's when it's about like showing up for public comment. That's when it's, like finding different ways to be able to advocate through like, either like public pressure or internal meetings, and sort of working both inside and outside of the system to ensure that that funding's being spent in an appropriate way. So that's when it really, really turns local. And that's when like the investment and advocacy of local communities is really critical.
And then when will there be another one of these refreshes for the property taxes for these companies? When will be the next one?
Yeah, so if Prop 15 passes, then the first phase of reassessments is around 2022. And then after that, it's every 3 years after that first reassessment. So say if like Disneyland gets reassessed in 2022, they're like, hey, you got to be paying a lot more, then that's going to be like reassessed 3 years after 2022. So then the next time would be 2025 when they reevaluate Disneyland's like sticker price.
Good. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for like doing the first presentation. That was real like informative, and like now I have a better understanding, so that I'm able to like push family members and also members of my community to go out and make sure that they know that it's not going to affect them as homeowners, because that's something that a lot of people are thinking of, like, well, if I'm a homeowner, if I pay property taxes in general, then it's going to affect me. So I'm glad that you cleared that up and just it's more so like commercial or people that have larger incomes or flow of income.
Yeah, definitely. And I know it's like a lot of like really nitty-gritty information, but at the same time, it's like really, really important information, because that's where like the misinformation comes from, right? Like when it's all in the details. So really, really appreciate y'all listening, and hopefully there are some tidbits that you can take from here to be able to inform your communities. Yeah. So if there aren't any other questions, we can move into the next portion. Marissa, wanted to check with you. Are breakout rooms possible on this or no? It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
are?
I'm the only one with breakout room functionality, but I am happy to make them, and you can just let me know how many people you want in each one.
Okay, perfect. Would be great to have breakout rooms with around 5 people each. So for this advocacy skill, I've learned that you all have already been working on things like writing a letter to the editor, phone banking, really, really important skills. But also know that like y'all can, oh my God, I totally lost my train of thought. That you all can also be leading these things too, right? Like you all could be hosting your own virtual events, hosting your own phone banks, getting your friends, your family, your communities involved. And a lot of that is really power in numbers, right? Because there's a lot of power from, say, like a phone bank that has 5 people versus a phone bank that has 15 people, and the number of folks that you're able to reach and help inform and help mobilize. So this advocacy skill training is really it's going to be a little broad, and definitely want y'all to be able to take the initiative to sort of like figure out how you would want to craft this event for yourself. So first want to teach you a tool that I learned very, very early on in organizing from a mentor of mine, and it's called POP. So it's a tool to be able to help create your own events and really think about like what are the critical pieces of building my event that I need to be able to make it successful. So the first P is purpose. So what is the purpose of this event that I'm hosting? So say if we're talking about Prop 15, I could say the purpose of this event is to host a phone bank to get as many community members informed about Prop 15 as possible. Then O is outcome. So what do I want the outcome of this phone bank to be? So that's sort of when you get into the details of the event to be able to help inform like what the implementation would look like. So I could say my outcome is I want at least 200 calls to be made during this phone bank, and that's my outcome. I want this event to reach 200 people to help inform them about Prop 15. Then the last portion, which is like the biggest part, is the last P, which is the process. And the process can be broken down into the content and the structure. So when thinking about first the structure, right? If your outcome is I want to get at least like 200 people called to be informed about Prop 15, what is the structure going to look like? How many people do I need to have on this phone bank to reach that 200 number? How is this event, what is the timing of my event going to be able to reach 200 people? If you're thinking that like every person is going to be making like say 20 calls an hour, right? So like with those sorts of details, you can help hash out, this is like how long I want my event to be. This is how I want my event to be structured. This is the amount of promotion that I need to do to be able to host this event and make it successful. And then the second part of that is your content. So content wise, what am I going to be doing to be making this event really engaging? And this is a piece that's really, really, really critical now that a lot of our organizing is happening on Zoom. And just to see a show of like hands or virtual hands from you all, how many of you all have like attended a virtual event or a virtual phone bank on Zoom, aside from these workshops? Okay, I see a couple hands. What have you liked about those events, these virtual events?
I would say I like that they're, they're fairly engaging, and of course a lot of them are different, but with this one, as I think it was Nisha, as she said, it was extremely informative because I didn't know much about it before, and now I know how to explain it to people that might have questions or might not understand what it is and how it doesn't necessarily affect them. So for the most part, I would say they're extremely informative and interactive as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I see something in the chat. They gave good information to prepare us for phone banking and also were very encouraging. Anyone else? What about like virtual events that you've been to have been engaging? What about them? Maybe one more person.
I like to share. So basically, when you're doing phone banking, like I've done, where it's like the host or the presenter, like they're there to answer our questions if we have any. Especially like with like for instance, we have Prop 16, and we're able to like get a lot of information so that we were able to move forward. So that because a lot of people are not familiar with Prop 16, so we're able to make we have resources. We're able to move forward so that we can go share with our community members so that they're familiar with what Prop 16 entails. And that's what I feel like it's been really encouraging, because with all these props, we don't really know like what they entail. We always see all the big corporations saying no instead of saying yes. So now that we get these trainings or when we do these workshops, it's like, okay, this is why you should say yes, or this is why it should be yes. And you get a better understanding. And that's why I think it's very encouraging.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for sharing. So now sort of on the flip side, I would love to hear from like maybe two folks here. What about virtual events have not been so engaging? I've definitely had my fair share of Zoom fatigue, so I know there's stuff out there. Non-participatory, right? Like a lot of times, like even say with this presentation, like a lot of it like might have been like me talking, so a lot of it maybe not have been that as engaging. It's easy to get distracted because you're not like physically there in the room together. Definitely. What I've noticed with phone banks a lot of the times is that everybody hops on, you do your introductions, and then as soon as it's time to phone bank, it's like everybody just turns off their cameras and then everybody just kind of silent for the next 40 minutes, like it's hard, right? Because not everyone's there together and like everyone's got different stuff going on, and it's just like Zoom is like its own monster, so it's hard to find different ways to make your content really engaging. And that's why like in the time that we have left, would love to split you all into breakout rooms where you all will figure out how to host a virtual phone bank of your own. So you can use the POP tool, you can use a tool of your own to figure out how to structure your event, to think about what's your purpose of this phone bank? What are you trying to do? We can focus it on Prop 15 if you want, but if you want to choose a different initiative, that's totally fine too. Your outcome. So what are you trying to get out of this event? What's your main goal for it? And then lastly, your process. So what is the structure of this event going to look like? Like how many people do you need? How much time are you going to have? That sort of thing. And also the content. And this is where I really, really want to focus on like what are some creative ways to make the event really engaging? Is it, you know, adding in like music, making it a little party? Is it, you know, like hyping people up whenever they have like a really good call? Like what are ways for us to really have that engaging aspect on Zoom that's been a little difficult to do in certain events, especially with phone banking and things like that. So would love to split you all into breakout rooms, Marissa, if you're able to do that, and would love to hear some of your ideas when you come back.
Okay, I'm on it. I'm also going to make you a co-host so that you can go inside of the breakout rooms, but now I will divide you all into, let's see, groups of, we'll do
Also, how
4
much
to
time
5.
do we have left?
Well, we have until we usually stop at around 1:50 to reconvene and reflect. So we
Okay.
have a big chunk of time.
Okay, cool.
But let's see. Hopefully you can join. Great.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think folks are still coming in, right? Yeah.
That was great. That was fun.
Yay! All right. Is everybody back? I don't
I
think
think
so.
there may be one more group still making their way back, but
Yeah, there we go.
get started
20
as they.
They're trickling in.
Yeah. How did that go? Okay, good, not so good. Okay, I see some nods. I see some thumbs up. That's really
It's
good.
pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yay! Okay, I'm glad. Yeah, super, super excited to hear your ideas. I think the way that we'll structure it out is let's have each group present their ideas for around like 3 minutes, and then let's give some space for other groups to give feedback based on what they heard from those ideas. Does that sound good to everyone?
Good.
Okay, amazing. Who wants to go first? Not everybody all at once.
Maybe what we can do is, I hope this isn't too like authoritative, but maybe we could just go breakout room by breakout room, like go down the list, like starting with breakout room 1. So that's Emily, Gwen, Will, Kelly, Imelda, etc. So if you were in that group and you want to share out, I mean, you don't have to, no pressure, but please, if you are willing and able, let us know a little bit about what you talked about and some of the good ideas that you all came up as a group together.
Yeah, so some of the things that we talked about, we talked about if it was like, if it's a large phone banking opportunity, right, we should split people up into different breakout rooms, just like small breakout rooms that they can kind of get to know throughout the course of the activity. And we should have like breaks every 15 minutes and maybe have like 5 minutes to reconvene and, you know, not call for those 5 minutes and just talk about like how it went and stuff. And then before the actual phone banking starts, we were saying it might be nice to have the opportunity to practice, just have like one trial call with someone else, right? Get paired up and have a trial call. And this might be nice because like it can be kind of intimidating for newcomers to start phone banking immediately. And then Gwen said that in the past she had been to an event where they actually mailed out snack boxes to everyone there. So and it was virtual, right? It was over Zoom, but they just mailed out the snack boxes beforehand. So that would be cool to do as well.
Very, very cool. Any feedback from other groups?
I just really love the idea of doing the practice call beforehand, because I know that a lot of times with phone banks, they utilize like technology, at least, that's unfamiliar to me, like different websites and platforms and things like that are specifically for phone banking that I've never used, and they can definitely be confusing and also intimidating if you're like me and you get a little bit nervous talking on the phone. So I think that that's really smart. That would definitely ease some of my nerves around, especially if it's something I've never phone banked for, like having a practice call with somebody I know. I think that would make it a lot less nerve-wracking for me. So thank you for sharing that. That's a great idea. And I love the snack box idea. I wish I could do that with all of you.
Yeah, and just to pick you off of Marissa said, like, also I think doing the practice calls is very important so you can be familiar with the script. Because I've noticed, like, sometimes when they really jump into the phone banking, I'm like, oh my, like, so like I'm reading it as I'm calling. I'm like, wait, oh, that didn't flow, that didn't go right. So then, like, when you do practice call, you can like nick it to where like the way it makes sense to you. Because sometimes you're nervous, you're making all these calls, you're like stuttering through the script. So that's what I think. So I agree. Practice calls is what we should do.
Definitely. Really, really great. Let's shift into the next group.
So great. Room 2, that was Sean, Samantha, and Chanel. If anyone from that group wants to share.
Yeah, so we had very similar ideas to group 1, actually. So we discussed how, I guess, like before we start, just to get everybody familiar with each other, we can do like icebreakers, just to kind of ease not like make us all kind of get more familiar with each other. Because I know through Zoom, like, you're talking with people who are like from all around the world even. So just to like break down that or getting more comfortable with each other so that we can do more, get more involved with interacting and not make it seem so scary to talk with each other. And then also like how Breakout Room was saying, how we could take breaks in between to discuss like maybe some almost like an FAQ kind of thing, like things that maybe we're having troubles with, or maybe something that we all we had maybe good conversations with other people and whatnot. And I was also thinking about how through Zoom, how you can like share screens. So maybe like if there's like, let's say a person that has done phone banking like a lot, they can share like a list of like tips that maybe they have with everybody in the groups, because I know it can be kind of scary and intimidating to just talk to random people on the phone. Like that's not something that a lot of people are even comfortable with. So just giving out like sharing like common questions and common tips that you can give to everyone, even just right before you start, or just having that just stayed on the screen. I think that can also help ease people into it as well. So that's what we discussed.
I thought like when she mentioned having like the tips on your share screen, I think I didn't even think about that, but I think that's really ideally like something that we should try doing if we do host Zoom parties or something. Like have the tips so that we're able to like know what we're gonna like how to navigate it, and like the mistakes that's happened in the past happened. So I think that's very smart and wise to do.
Yeah, those were some great ideas. And one thing that just made me think of is when we did our second session on Measure J, Reimagine LA. And Caleb, who was leading the session and teaching us how to phone bank, actually did like a live call on the screen. I thought that was super helpful to actually sort of watch him do a call as he was walking us through it. I thought that was really helpful. So if you're, in a situation where you can't like do a practice beforehand, that I think is a great idea and something that could be really helpful in addition to kind of having a list of tips and tricks up on the screen. So thank you for sharing those. I just wanted to throw that in there because it reminded me that I liked that when Caleb did that in our second session.
Definitely, really great ideas. Any other feedback?
Just echoing what other people said, I think it would be really great to have like a tip sheet from people who are experienced with it.
Love it, love it. All right, let's go to the next group.
So that was
I'll
me
just
and Nisha's
say
group.
something. So our group,
Go ahead, Lupe. Go ahead.
I was going to say our group didn't talk about an actual phone banking. We talked about having advocacy parties, either virtually, whether using our social media accounts, whether it be a live, oh, I don't know if you guys can hear me. My internet is unstable again.
It's going good right now. It's going good.
So using our social media accounts to have using our social media accounts to have live advocacy parties. Also, Eunice talked about having like Instagram or other accounts to have these advocacy parties. So there's other avenues, and just, not make it so educational, but also make it fun. And I guess one of my other teammates can also add.
I was just going to add that one thing I thought of as we were discussing in our groups is using Canva. If anyone here has heard of Canva, it's a website that's really helpful for making like infographics and flyers, and they have a lot of really great templates for all different types of social media posts. So like if you're making a Facebook post or an Instagram story, like any platform they have online. Thank you, Zara. I was going to send that over. But yeah, that's the link, and it's a really great website. If you like, it can make anything look like a graphic designer created it. So if you're like myself and you're a little bit, artistically and technologically challenged, Canva is a really great website for making like informational posts, or even if you are planning on hosting your own phone banking or advocacy party, you can make an invitation that way and disseminate that through social media. So I definitely recommend using Canva if you plan on posting anything on social media or anything like that. It's a very great website.
And just to piggyback off of what Meredith said, we also discussed like basically like when we do use Canva, we can make these flyers or these little posters to hand out to community members so that they're familiar with getting a little bit of information, so that they know what they're voting for. But also like if you're going to the grocery store or something, you could just like, oh, have you heard about this? Just like giving them like something tangible to hold, so that you can tell someone so much and then they walk away and not remember. So yeah, we use Canva for that. But also, when you do upload onto like social media, you have like this fancy looking post or something that's nice, and then you could just like tag it, or you can what you call it, tag it, or hashtag it. There you go, hashtag it, so that it's able to go into like.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really great ideas. How much do we have enough time for presentations from other groups too? I know 150's here.
Yeah, we have until 2, so we're all
okay,
set.
cool. Okay, perfect. Any feedback for this group? All right, that's okay. Let's move into the next group.
So that was
Number 3.
Group number 4, which was Elizabeth, Jiyoung. Was it just that 2 of you? If anyone who was in group 4 wants to share, please go ahead.
So I was thinking that, like some of the other groups said, maybe like icebreakers in the beginning, like as a big group, if there's not too many people, and then in addition to phone banking, there could be like other activities, like I think someone like maybe like creating flyers or something you can put up on like social media, and then maybe creating presentations you can share with like friends, family, maybe anyone you're calling. And then because I know that phone banking sometimes you just start calling and then like it's not really like a group activity, I think, if that makes sense. So maybe working on like the posters together could involve more people, and of course like breaks in between. And then maybe if we like in breakout rooms, you kind of like switch up, like rotate which kind of activity you're doing, so everyone gets kind of the full experience.
I'm totally muted. Definitely love it. Any feedback for this group? All right, no worries. Let's move into, I believe that's the last group, group 5.
Yep, group 5, which was Jolene, Sarah, and Megan.
So my group, we basically talked about different ideas, but one that I guess we kind of all agreed on that would be like kind of out of what everyone else has said. Use like social media as a platform, but it can work with a big either advocacy group or an organization that helps you run it, and it makes it a contest. So people can post their videos, a film, or like they can create a song regarding whatever. Like if it was like on Prop 15, it'd be like revolving around that and how they're going to advocate for it. So it can be like artistically, they can do a poem, they can whatever they want to do, and then post it and then share it with like the organization that's running this event. And they can have like a big like Zoom party and like show all these videos, and then they'll announce the winner at the end, and then the winner, hopefully the organization can find some like cool like way to like showcase the winner. So like maybe they can share it on like a news on like TV, or like in a like I don't know, like a YouTube, like a big YouTube channel or something like that, like something big that can like reward the winner. So we felt like that would be a good way to like not only show people's like artistic abilities, but also how they choose to advocate for things that they really like believe in. And yeah, so that's what we came up with.
Very cool. Any feedback?
Just great idea.
All right. Thank you all so much for those presentations. Those are all some very, very cool ideas. I tried capturing them all. So I put a doc in the chat that's just a collection of the notes based on the ideas that you all shared for your future reference. And if I missed anything, like this is your doc, so feel free to add whatever you like and use as a reference for future events that you start to host or lead moving forward. Also wanted to share this resource with you all that I typically use called Sister District. So it's a guide to hosting virtual phone banks, but it could really be used for any event. And it's a sort of step-by-step guide to help center yourself on like, okay, what are the things that I need to get done in order to structure this event and really make it successful? So that's sort of a resource that I tend to go back to if I feel like I'm missing something. So definitely wanted to share with you all as well. But these were definitely some really, really cool ideas to get folks engaged. Other pointers that I've seen from organizations like over time, from what I've seen through these like Zoom, Google Meets events, is one, if you have the option of doing a Zoom meeting versus like a webinar / panel, choose the meeting. Because with meetings, there are a lot more ways to get folks engaged. They just feel like more physically in the space than when it's a webinar or panel. And with webinars, people tend to tune out. So definitely choose a Zoom meeting if you do have that option. Other things that I've seen is like turning phone banks into sort of like mini parties. So like you can share virtual backgrounds beforehand, have a playlist ready, and kind of like turn it into like a mini Zoom party while you phone bank. Sorry. Another thing that I've seen that I think I heard someone mention is like add a piece into it that's like a group activity or like a teaching moment. So one thing that I saw from a candidate that was really focused on immigration issues was they turned it into a phone bank for the candidate plus a know your rights workshop for say like commenting against like ICE and like law enforcement and that sort of thing. So like if you have a an opportunity to turn it into a teaching moment, you could integrate that into your event. So there are a lot of really, really cool ways to keep events engaging, whether it's like educational or whether it's fun. And definitely, I'm sure you all will be hosting your own events and phone banks in the very near future. So definitely like use the pointers that you all have come up with to be able to create those events or empower others to be able to create those events and opportunities. So really, really appreciate sharing this space with you all. You all had some really, really cool ideas. And definitely like feel free. I'm putting my email in here. So feel free. I cannot type and talk at the same time. One sec. It's such a long email. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, whether it's about volunteering for the Prop 15 campaign, whether it's like, you know, any questions that you have at all. Like always happy to be a resource. And also wanted to reshare the volunteer opportunities for the Prop 15 campaign. So as I mentioned before, pretty frequently there is phone banking. You can help out with social media, writing a letter to the editor, creating your own lawn and window signs. One other thing that might be of interest of you all is like an opportunity to share your story. So there's like a framework for you to share your story like through a video and be able to post it on social media. And like the Prop 15 campaign might also share it on your behalf. So also a really cool volunteer opportunity there. So lots of ways to get involved in the campaign. Definitely hope to see your faces sometime in the near future, whether it's for Prop 15 or something else. And thanks again so much for your time today and hearing me ramble. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Zara, for joining us today. Let's all give her a big, real or fake virtual round of applause.
Applause for you all.
Yay! Wait, I want to get mine. How do I? There we go. Both. Okay, well, we have about 4 minutes left. In these final 4 minutes, does anyone want to share just some parting thoughts or reflections, maybe something interesting that they learned or something that they enjoyed or even something that they didn't enjoy or just anything that they want to share with us before we close out for the day? You can also type in the chat if you would rather.
Oh, I don't know. Someone was gonna say.
Go ahead.
Oh, I couldn't help but think because I live in Inglewood, and it's becoming very how do I say, not industrialized, but we have like these stadiums, and they're like building them, and it's just becoming very like
Gentrification.
There you go. That's what it is.
Yeah. No,
And-
I also live in Inglewood, so yeah, it's gentrification at its finest. I lived there when like back in like probably like 10 years ago when like they first kicked everyone out of La Cienega. So yeah, it's it's pretty bad. But go ahead, Amelda, my bad. Go ahead. I just want to touch into that.
For sure. Just the housing rates are like going through the roof, and we live right by the stadium. So I just feel like this proposition may help in the case. I was just thinking about it this whole time, and I couldn't help but think about like the people that have been living here for the longest time and the effects that all of this like movement in the city can impact us. So just a thought.
Yes, thank you for sharing. We have 2 other people. One said thank you so much, and then I really enjoyed the whole call. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the call. Yeah, this is very informative. Very. I want to go out and start saying yes to 15. Okay. If no one else have any comments or anything for the wrapping and closing up of the training, I'll just wrap it up. But do you have anything to tell us before we wrap up, Zara?
No, that's all. Just drop the phone banking link in the chat again for folks who needed it. But thank you all so much again, and hope to see you all soon. Y'all are great.
Yes, thank you for
Before
all
we
you
close out,
Yeah.
sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, let's not forget to take our group photo before we close out.
On your camera, if you can't, no worries. It'll just show up as your name when I send out the thank you email or the confirmation emails or thank you for coming out. it'll have your name. So if you want to show your face, if you don't, it's all good. But all right, you gonna do it, Marissa? Or you want me to do it?
Yeah, I got it up. So, all right, everyone smile in 3, 2, 1. Okay, got it. You guys look great.
Yes, everyone looks lovely. All right, so next week is our workshop number 5. Number 5. Woo-hoo. All right, you guys are making it. We out of 6. We got 2 more left. 2 more left. It's number 4. So with that being said, if you are able to make it next week on the 11th, sign up the same way that you sign up for this one. Same time, 12 to 2. And we'll be getting some information about medical wise and how we can assist, which is like very, very, very near and dear because like it's a social issue with it when it comes to medical. So if you all can come on next week, same time, 12 to 2, we'll have a wonderful presenters and see you all there. And then also I'll be sending out the email for the thank you, and if you can fill out the surveys, that would be very greatly appreciated. And yeah, thank you all for coming out, and thank you, Zara, for giving the presentation. It was great.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, have a great week. Be safe, everyone.
Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.